Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Pixelated Sausage Show. This isn't first. This is the Pixelated Sausage Show. I am, of course, your host, Mark Kuznez. I made for freaking sure that I was recording the audio in this here episode. I just got out of the toilet, everyone. Fun fact, if you've been at my streams or in the Discord, you know that I took a risk. I took a gamble. I was like, hey, I really like mushrooms. I recently gained a newfound intolerance for them. And they made me feel very, very sick. At least I thought that was the mushrooms. But you know what? I'm going to try it. I'm going to try some mushrooms again. And I did this before, where I already had known about the new intolerance and gambled with my life and more specifically my butthole, and I came out on the bottom, and stuff came out of my bottom, a lot of stuff, all day long. And you know what happened this time? Is more stuff coming out of the bottom. That's for damn sure. I had so much poo poo yesterday, and today still a little bit lingering left over, a little bit left. It's like what's that line? Where is that from? Still got a little bit left. Rush Hour? No. Huh? What's that from? Yeah, no. It was Rush Hour, because I was watching that in the beginning where Chris Tucker. Fun fact: those movies are like super casually racist and misogynistic, and they're not great, not surprising. And going back to them, you really realize just how little they took advantage of Jackie Chan and his qualities. So I think the Shanghai movies are better American movies starring Jackie Chan. And those are actually movies that I can tolerate Owen Wilson in. I find him to be pretty annoying often, but I think he works in the Shanghai movies. But yeah, it's like you blew up half a city block. One cop lost a pinky. You lost a lot of evidence. Still a little bit left. So that's what I was thinking of. You're welcome. I'm sure we are all happy I fucking got there. But yeah, I just got out of the toilet. I'm recording this late because I've been iffy, feeling wise and all that jazz. But yeah. I'm feeling overall pretty good, even though that poop I just had was a little not great, but feeling all right now. But yeah, shouldn't be a crazy long episode, in large part because like this is the part where I can talk a lot about this and that and whatever. No Patreon questions. I did get one later. I don't know if they thought it would be in time for this here episode, but I have a strict guideline. Even if I've yet to record the episode, I want to keep the specific schedule for when questions can be asked for specific episodes the way it is. I don't want to break that, because I would like to get on a better scheduling stuff with these shows. But in terms of what I've been watching, I have decided to commit to Star Trek: The Next Generation, even though I still... it's gonna be nice when that show gets good. That's all I can say. But after I continued watching Lost, watching up and through episode 8, I turned on it so fast. I was really high on it last episode. And when I say last episode, I mean last podcast episode. And now, today, I haven't watched it in a few days. I decided to just drop it. I might watch an episode here and there. But after watching 8 episodes over the course of 3 days, roughly, I realized how bad Lost is for binging. People may disagree, of course, but I think Lost is a terrible show for binging because it lets all of its weak points really come to the forefront, and you realize how bad the writing is and how ridiculous a lot of these things are, you get annoyed. I got annoyed with the quality of certain elements of it. For instance, the flashbacks can be really bad. The quality is all over the place. And in some cases, they feel like really bad Hallmark movies. The Sawyer backstory with him trying to cheat this woman and her husband out of some money, doing a little fucking whatever you call it, and then seeing their kid and being like, oh no, I can't do this because it happened to him when he was a kid or whatever. Like that, the way it was shot, the acting in it was really, really bad. And the thing is, I could see even that and its awfulness in terms of quality being fun when you're watching a week to week and having a group of friends, co-workers, etc. to talk about, and in some cases rib on aspects of the show, joke about it. That's what made Terminator Genesis for me so entertaining when I watched it in the theater. I saw it with two friends who are no longer friends, but when I saw it at the theater, me and one of the friends, we were just making fun of how stupid so much of the shit was in it. And then the other friend did not like that. They were not happy with us because they genuinely liked the movie, and when it was over, admitted that they thought it was a good movie. And let's be clear about one thing. Terminator Genesis is a bad movie. It has to be the worst Terminator movie. I'm trying to think of what other options are there. Terminator 3 is solid. I think Dark Fate is the second best Terminator movie. And then Salvation, haven't rewatched that. I have a hard time believing there's any way in hell that could be worse than Genesis. I think it's probably just, very, very different from the rest of the series, given the story it's putting out there and everything. But lost me with the binging nature I was consuming it at, and how whatever it lost me by that. So I may still watch episodes here and there, but even more than that, I fucking hate Kate. I don't know what the popular consensus is on her. I don't know what people think about her in general, but she is a terrible character. She is horribly written. She is everything bad about Lost confided in one character. Like, she's a frustrating character. She's an annoying character. She's just, like, she could be a great character. And I love Evangeline Lilly. Is that her name? I'm not sure about the first name exactly in terms of pronunciation and exactly what it is. But I love her in the Ant-Man movies, which are great. Those are A-tier MCU movies. Super underrated. A-tier in terms of just overall, or in terms of the MCU, I guess. But I'd say S-tier in terms of MCU movies that stand on their own and can just be enjoyed without any context or previous experience with the series. Like the Ant-Man movies, Captain America, First Avenger, and Winter Soldier as well. Iron Man. Like, there are a handful of movies in the MCU that are just good movies on their own. And the Ant-Man movies are fun-ass heist movies. They've got heart to them. Her hair is so much better than the second one. That's the worst thing about the first Ant-Man. I hate that. It's just, I do not like that hairstyle. And I think that's a popular thing. A lot of people joke about her hair and everything. But it's just, I don't like it. I don't think it's a bad hairstyle or anything. Some people like it. I don't like it. So I guess I do think it's a bad hairstyle. But I'm just saying, like, it's not inherently bad for everyone. Shut up. But yeah, her character on Lost is horrible. She's just, maybe she gets better, I don't know. but as much as the brother and sister can be annoying, they feel more like, they feel real. They feel like people I know. She just feels like, come on, man. Come on. This is horrible. I hate you so much. But yeah, I mean, Lost is what I thought it was at this point. A show that is best when watched with other people so you can talk about it. It is very much so an event show, something that is, it transcends the aspect of quality. Like, the level of quality of the show doesn't matter as much as just the event nature of it. I don't fucking know. It's just watching it by myself ain't gonna work. I thought I could watch it with my dad, but then when I watched 2 episodes, I'm like, I'm gonna watch probably like 2 episodes a day. Let's watch it together. He was like, I don't remember if I said this last episode, but he's like, yeah, let's do that. And then he proceeded to watch 7 episodes, and I don't know, he's probably already done with the first season at this point. And I'm like, I can't keep up with that pace. So here we are. That's pretty much it in terms of what I've been watching. So let's get on to what I've been playing. Starting with Kaichu, the Kaiju dating sim. And this is, of course, a Kaiju dating sim where you take on the role of a Godzilla-ish monster. You got a little heart on you, like your chest is hearts, I think. And it's very cute. It's got a very pleasant, inviting aesthetic. Very pastel-y in terms of the color palette. Very colorful. And I was immediately drawn in by its structure and the way it handles everything, because it's a lot more interactive than your typical dating sim. It's way more of a interactive game than a visual. Like, I would not call it a visual novel. It's not a visual novel. It is in no way a visual novel. There's not a lot of writing or reading, and you might expect that because these are kaiju. They are kaiju. They interact with each other they're not fighting each other. Okay. They're just kaiju who aren't able to speak eloquently like humans. They don't speak in English or any language for that matter. The only bits of dialogue you get are between dates from these news anchors who are telling you about the previous date very succinctly. And they don't go into great detail about it, and then talk about what you might expect, maybe a little bit help in terms of how the next date will play out. Like you pick a new destination, and then they'll give you a little bit of dialogue, and then you go about your date. And the way the game works is that you are your kaiju, and there are 6 potential suitors that are scattered around the world, around various landmarks. And you can pick any one of them, during a playthrough. Playthroughs last... If you start skipping the dialogue, which I did because it's okay, but it wasn't great, you can get through the game in a half hour, or probably less, if you skip all the dialogue. But after you pick a potential mate, a potential partner, you go around the world to various landmarks, and then you have the gameplay aspect. And you will be in the dark early on. You'll have to learn about each of these potential mates and who they are, what type of answers they'll gravitate towards more. And of course, with additional playthroughs, you'll be able to better do this and get perfect dates, etc. But it works off a type of rock, paper, scissors system. Not exactly, but you have 3 choices with each question that's thrown out during these dates. And the questions can be anything like, okay, do you like sports? Are you an athletic person? Do you like sports? And then you'll have yeah, I'm really into sports. Yeah, I'm kind of neutral, or no. So it works on a thumbs up, thumb sideways, thumbs down answering system. And depending on how you answer and who you are dating, they will have a certain reaction. If they really, really like it, you'll see hearts and you'll really wreak some havoc on the landmark you're at. If they're also neutral, or if they're in the neutral section, they'll be like, yeah, this is okay. And you'll kind of just punch and slap the landmark around. If they don't like what you said, then you're not going to do anything. That landmark's going to stay safe. And you just do this for 6 or so questions on a date, with the last question being the deal breaker question. And I think the questions prior affect the bar that fills up after each date towards whether they like you or not. But it is the deal breaker question that affects the little cutscene that follows. I don't even want to call it a cutscene, but whether or not you embrace each other, shun each other, like walk away from each other, or give a little kissy kiss. It's all dependent on that. It doesn't matter how good the rest of the date went. That last question is what affects that final little cutscene thing. And as you are progressing through 3 acts, if a date goes well, it'll fill up your heart meter. And if it doesn't go well, it'll fill up the heartbroken meter. And you just go about these dates. You fill up the heart meter. You move on to Act 2. Act 2, the military starts to chime in with the news reports, but they don't actually do anything. They say a lot. They put out a lot there, but they don't do anything until Act 3, where Act 2 is just the same as Act 1. And Act 3, eventually they'll bring in a mech, and during one of your dates at a landmark, the mech will show up instead, and you'll have to fight the mech. And that's basically the boss fight. You finish it, and it's just... The problem with the game is that after you've done one date, you've done every date. It's just the same shit. And a fair amount of it is just guesswork and trying to hope and pray that the answer you give will be good. But there are a lot of educated guesses as well. So you'll learn when... Like I dated the royalty, the Hydra or whatever. She's of royal descent or whatever. And I quickly got an idea of her character and the kind of things she would like. But it didn't always work out. In some cases, there were things that seemed like they would be the obvious right answer, and they weren't. But overall, I was able to successfully woo her. We defeated the mech and all that, and I was done with it in a half hour or so. But like I said, it's kind of an amusing distraction for 5 minutes. But because it doesn't have any depth, the interactions on the dates don't change in any way. Even when the even when the mech dude shows up, you're just fighting a mech instead of a landmark, and he can fight back. But even then, like it's more so in that fight with the mech. It's not so much that you are fighting something different or that the combat feels different, but that they are asking you questions related to your previous dates. So they'll ask you, when did you first kiss? Where was it? What landmark was it at? What did you talk about at this date? And so it's testing your memory and how good of a partner you've been. And that's the only interesting aspect about it, the only challenging aspect about it. But outside of that, it's just more of the same. And it gets old really, really fast. And it gets old really, really fast because there is so little depth to the actual gameplay. So that while in some cases, some games will have repetitive gameplay, but it's super satisfying, or there's a lot of depth to it, there's a lot to it, so that even though you are doing the same thing over and over and over again, you at least have a lot to think about within that repetitive gameplay. And here it's just, I can't imagine replaying this game. I was struggling to want to even finish the game because it was so boring almost immediately. And that's a shame because I really like the fact that it's not. And maybe it would have been better if there was space between the interactions, if there was more of a visual novel aspect to it and more reading and more story. But how they'd go about doing that, if they don't want to have the actual monsters talking and stuff. But yeah, it's something that I think it's not super expensive, so it might be worth picking up if it sounds interesting to you. But just bear in mind, it's going to get old fast, and once you've done one date and one playthrough, it ain't going to be any different with any of the other monsters. It's just going to be meeting someone new and learning a new personality, but doing the same exact thing over and over and over and over again. So it's okay. I'd like to see more games like this, at least, though. Games that are more interactive, but maybe, try and add some more. Don't oversimplify it. Then we have Rick Henderson, which when I was looking at my show notes and looking at the games I had to talk about, that's when I realized how horrible of a name. When you think of games and game names and all that, how exciting does Rick Henderson sound as a game name? Do you see Rick Henderson when perusing Steam or the Xbox store, or wherever I played on Xbox? But if you were looking at a store full of games and you saw Rick Henderson, would you stop and be like, man, now that sounds like I want to play that game? And you don't really want to play it because it's a side-scrolling shmup, so that means horizontal scrolling, right? Is that right? I hate shmups and having to remember what is horizontal and what's vertical. I think horizontal, but I'm probably fucking wrong because I'm an idiot. But it's a side-scrolling shmup that has some interesting systems and mechanics in it that don't really seem to work or be effective or are just pointless. The way it works is that you have 3 different ships to pick from at the beginning. One is just like a standard all-around ship, and that is the Rick Henderson ship. Then you have like a bug creature who's fast and maneuverable, but is weak. And then a big old boar-looking dude who's slower, but who's got the shields. Can take a beating. And the enemies that are coming at you will come in 3 different types. Small, regular enemies, any weapon can damage them. Then shielded enemies who will take more damage from your energy weapon, and ones with armor who will take more damage from your... Is it... Because the one... Rick Henderson has a rocket launcher. I forget what the ammo type is called. But you have these 3 different guns at your disposal at all times that are mapped to the face buttons. On Xbox, it's X, A, and B. And then Y is your special ability. Rick Henderson's special ability is being able to create a copy of himself, so enemies will focus on that for a brief period of time. But the whole system of using specific weapons for specific enemies doesn't really work well. It's clear when an enemy has a shield because they'll have a very visible shield on them. But the way the game words armored enemies is that armored enemies are usually bigger than your regular enemies, and they've got armor on. I couldn't tell outside of them being bigger, but sometimes they're not even that much bigger than your regular basic weak enemies. So it just seemed weird, and I would mostly just use the regular gun to damage them, because that was more consistent. Because with the, say, energy weapon, it'll do double damage to shielded enemies, but half damage to armored enemies, and vice versa for armored enemies with the like missile launcher and stuff. But the standard bullet type gun just does standard damage to everything. And they'll have various spreads, they'll have various areas of effect and everything. That whole system is really good in concept and theory, but it just doesn't work. And there are visual cues to let you know if you are using the right weapon. An enemy will flash red if you're doing double damage, or purple. I don't remember the colors, because whenever I was looking at them, either I could not see the color that was flashing, or all the fucking colors looked the exact same. I couldn't tell any fucking thing. But that was disappointing. The fact that the systems didn't really feel that thought out, or didn't seem to work as well as they maybe expected, or they just didn't feel like they were working in my time with the game. But then also there's a lot of visual stylings going on that I would recommend turning off if you do end up wanting to check out the game. Chromatic aberration, or whatever it's called, turn that off. Turn off, like, the bloom is default off, keep that at off. Turn off every single visual setting in the game, because if there's just screen shaking, you don't want that. There's flashing, so that when you take damage, holy shit, does the screen just become incomprehensible. And it's just, it's really slow moving. I wish you moved faster when not firing your gun, so that you could easily maneuver by enemies or whatever, and bullets. There is a, not parry system, but a near miss system. So if you have enough near misses with bullets without getting hit, it'll call in some allies who will help you out, which is kind of nice. The special meter, like with Rick Henderson, where he can make a clone of himself, that fills on its own. You don't have to pick up any type of power points or anything. There are these medals you collect that improve your multiplier or something, but it just wasn't super fun to play. It was very slow moving and boring. It's a very dull shmup. And that's the last thing you want from a shmup. A shmup should be fun and overwhelming, usually. And this was just slow and boring. Very, very, very apt for a game that decided to call itself Rick Henderson and not fucking Alien Blaster 2000. But then we got Roadwarden, which is a text-based adventure game. It's basically a Twine game with a very, very nice UI and art on top of it. So you are doing a lot of, it is all reading with a lot of choices to be made by you. It's what I want from visual novels. I have not beaten this game, but I have enjoyed my time with it a lot. You play as a Roadwarden, as you might expect, with your trusty horse, and you are tasked with figuring out what has happened to the previous Roadwarden and what's going on in this particular region. You start off by getting to this fort and talking with the locals there who survived, the few survivors. And then you can go about your adventuring, your mystery solving in your own way. And it's very well written. It's from a Polish developer, so there are quite a few typos here and there and some translation issues which can be distracting, but overall it's very well written. It's very thorough. It has 3 difficulties, Like, I don't want to talk too much about the story because that's all the game is. I don't want to spoil it. But there are 3 difficulties. One that is very casual friendly, no time limit. You can just be as thorough as you want. The challenge will be significantly lessened, and you can just explore the world and be in it. Then the standard, you have 40 days to figure out what's going on, and the difficulty will be standard. And then the hard, more challenging one will limit you to 30 days and increase the challenge. But you're basically just, like a Twine game, a Twine experience. You're doing a lot of reading, and then occasionally have choices. You'll have various dialogue options that you can exhaust by talking to people and whatnot. But then you'll have all these choices that are usually, in some cases, depending on the class you pick, you can be a mage, a scholar, or a warrior. You may be able to get past something without dealing with RNG. The RNG is not visible. I don't think they showed ever like the actual outcome, like if it's a dice roll and you need to get a 3 or higher to succeed. They don't show you any of that. There's no transparency there. You just have to. It's just random. But you'll have your situation where like you'll come across an abandoned village, and you can choose to explore. You can choose not to. When you choose to, it'll give you options. Do you want to check this area first? This area first? You run across something. Okay, how do you want to engage this situation? Slow and steady. Blah blah blah. And the choices you make will have, if there is RNG tied to them, little dice next to them. And you'll see how things play out. You have to worry about your hunger, sleep, not sleep, but health. If you are the mage, your mana, and managing that to make sure that you have enough in case of emergency, and you can only regain that through sleeping and whatnot. And it's very well done. I really like the art, and I'm excited to play more. I have no idea how long it is, and that's going to vary depending on how thorough you are, how much you engage with the characters and the conversations you have in front of you, how fast of a reader you are. The weird thing about it is that it's coming out on the 12th on Steam, and you can wishlist it, but there's no price. I don't know how much this game costs, and that's weird. Seems weird to me. But yeah, I've enjoyed my time with it so far. But it's solely reading. That's all there is. Reading. I mean, you have choices that you will be making, but you don't have any. Like, there's no gameplay that's going to require you to be fast. Like, anyone can play this game. If you're a fan of fantasy, and you like reading, you like a good yarn being thrown at you, whatever the hell that saying is. It yarns a good yarn. It sews a good yarn. Whatever the fuck that stupid ass say it is. My first impression with Roadwarden, having played it for about 3 hours or so, I'm enjoying it quite a bit. I don't know how things are gonna wrap up, but it's well written. If you can, I mean, I'm a stickler for this stuff, and I could get past it. There are typos, there are some translation hiccups, but overall, the writing is very, very good, and I like the art. And the thing about it for me too is, I look at this game, man. This is 100%. I've written Twine games that I've just never put out, or I've written games for Twine that I've never then structured within Twine and put in there to create an actual game of them. But if I were to ever create a game myself, it would 100% be like this. It would be something of this ilk. And I wish we got more games like this. I do. The setting for me is a bit. It's It's very that's probably the weakest part of the game is just the fact that it's a typical fantasy. It's typical fantasy fare. It's not doing anything, at least so far, super exciting or unique. It doesn't feel that special in terms of its setting or its characters or anything of that nature. It's just very well written and very well done. So it's a good fantasy game, good fantasy story, but it's just that. So that would be the one. Like, if you're not into fantasy, of course, don't fucking bother with this game. It's not going to win you over. It's not going to be the fantasy game, the fantasy story that turns you into a fantasy fan. It's not. But if you're someone who just eats up fantasy, you love Dungeons and Dragons, you love all that stuff, then I think you'll really enjoy this. But that would be the one. Not thinking about it right now. Yeah, it could be a bit more unique, and in that sense, I'm thinking about it now. I'm enjoying it now in the moment, but will I remember it in a few months? Is it something I'll think back of fondly when I'm thinking about games of the year? Maybe, because I haven't played much, but it's not unique in terms of its setting or its characters or anything like that. So it's not going to make a lasting impression. It's definitely not going to be in my top 100 games of all time or anything of that ilk at all, because it's going to be something I forget soon enough, which isn't bad. It just means it's not hitting that special level. But yeah, that's it in terms of what I've been playing and all that jazz. So yeah, with no Patreon questions for this here episode. Already got one for the next, but nothing this episode. So yeah, I mean that's it. That's it, baby. So that will do it for this here episode of the Pixelated Sausage Show. Once again, I am Marcus Nez. Y'all can find me on Twitter and pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you'd like to see me streaming games, like games, I didn't stream Roadwarden or Rick Henderson, so you can't. Too bad. But if you'd like to see me streaming games here and there, you can do that here on the Twitches. Nope. Fucking. What am I on about? See, I'm still not like settled on how I do this outro. But if you are watching and not just listening to this here video on the YouTubes, of course, then you can see me streaming games here as well. And if you missed them, you can check out the archive. But of course, if you haven't already, do like, subscribe, hit the bell, and all that jazz. If you are an audio listener, please do go over to YouTube, and that is youtube.com/pixelatedsausage to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, and all that jazz. Even if you never engage with YouTube, it may seem meaningless, but it does help, and it would be greatly appreciated. And if you'd like to find all my other links of import, you can go over to pixelatedsausage.com/pxs, and you'll get them there. And last but not least, if you enjoy this show and any of my other shows, any other poop I do and what have you, you can go over to patreon.com/pxs to support me and my nonsense that away. That is, again, patreon.com/pxs. That'll get you access to a few fancy schmancy private Discord channels. It'll give you the ability, if you support at the $3 or higher level, to ask me questions for this here show, as well as approved status on the YouTube, so you can post whatever the hell you want without worry. So, Monster, you don't want to get timed out ever again? You gotta pay. Gotta pay to play, baby. And I don't know if moderators can still time out approved users or not, so don't actually quote me on that. Though I will say this. If you're an approved user and you get timed out by anyone other than me, I will unmod that person. They will immediately lose their powers. And it might be a forever ban of powerdom. But yeah, that is it for this here episode. So until next time, as always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoy this here episode, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Bye!
It's go time. Go daddy. It's go time. Go daddy.